Yo, yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy Fro, and today I'm going to be talking about Terrifier 3. So ain't nothing to it but to do it. We have a carnage-filled intro where Art the Clown infiltrates a family home during Christmas and he brutally kills everybody, including the kids, unfortunately. We jump back to 5 years before, where Art the Clown's body is found during the finale of Terrifier 2, takes place after, by an unlucky cop who gets decapitated off screen when Art wakes back up, and we later see Art wearing the cop's head on a subway. We flash forward again to 5 years later, and we're following Sienna from the previous film as she tries to get a handle on her PTSD that she's suffering. The ghosts of Art's victims from part 2 come back to haunt her to such an extreme degree, even appearing to her in public and while she's spending time with her family. Her brother Jonathan moved away to college and he's just trying to live a normal life as best as possible. Sienna is staying with her sister Jessica, her standoffish husband, and their daughter Gabby. But Art the Clown pops back up in a Santa suit nonetheless to stalk and kill Sienna and everyone she loves with the help of the horrifically ghoulish Victoria. Which I wanted to mention, this is not just an Art the Clown showcase. Victoria is a grotesque and incredibly disturbing woman who was actually one of the main heroines in the first Terrifier film, but after being disfigured brutally by Art, she's gone into madness and she eventually joins his side. Now moving on to the body count. Here's some deaths that I found to be the most brutal and gruesome. I'm going into spoiler territory right now, so if you want to watch the movie without knowing the spoilers, click off, come back, and watch the rest of the review after you finish the movie. Two construction kind of guys come across Art's hiding place where he's been collecting dust and cobwebs for the past couple years in a rocking chair. And they also come across Victoria's corpse, so we think, in a bathtub after she's committed suicide previously. We're pretty much waiting for Art and Victoria to pop up. The tension is building. Art eventually rips apart one of the guys' heads very graphically and slowly. And Victoria, after killing one of the other dudes, she gets a blade of glass and starts to self-pleasure herself with the fucking piece of glass. And I got to admit, it's the most nastiest moment in the film for me. I almost wanted to turn away, and it doesn't take a lot to really churn my stomach, but that was pretty fucked up for me. I was like, oh man. We don't see the actual act on screen, but we do see blood splatter between her legs, and that did make me wince quite a bit. We come to find out that Art steals the Santa outfit from a mall Santa hanging out in a bar, where we also get a small Clint Howard cameo. He's not playing Santa, but he's playing one of the other bar guys. Art approaches Santa like a fan, and at first everybody's laughing, but after pissing the bad guys off, pun intended, he kills everybody and ties Santa to a chair. He gets a liquid nitrogen tank, freezes Santa's hands, his legs, his arms, his face, and eventually starts breaking every limb piece by piece, and it's a pretty gnarly sequence. There's a very messed up scene in the finale where Art the Clown and Victoria get a giant tube and they shove the tube down Jessica, the mom of Gabby's, throat, and they start pouring rats down the tube. They eventually slit her throat and rats start to pour out of the wound. It's either the self-pleasure with the blade of glass scene or this sequence that takes the cake for the most grossest moment in the film for me. Sienna's sister Jessica, her husband, I can't remember his name, but his death scene is pretty grotesque. We don't see the impact of what happens to him on screen, but the gory aftermath and the detail of his body pinning up to the wall in a crucifixion pose, with his intestines hanging out, his guts are all spilling all over the floor. It's a really nasty image, but it is a little bit darkly comedic when it comes into play later again in the finale, where Art smushes Sienna's face into the gaping wound of the husband's body, and it's really fucked up and dark, but it did give me a bit of a chuckle, I can't lie. But his death, again, even though we don't see what happens to him directly on screen, the aftermath of his body is a pretty gnarly image. But of course, we have the famous chainsaw shower scene, and I can confirm that it's the most graphic death in the film. Jonathan's friend and college mate Owen is having a naughty time with his girlfriend in the shower, and she also happens to be a fan of Jonathan and Sienna's horrific backstory. But Owen and the girlfriend both get carved up in the shower, and it gets worse when Art the Clown plunges the chainsaw in Owen's ass, and we see his but we see his dick and balls getting all chopped up. Super, super graphic, probably a 10 out of 10 on the gore scale. I mean, damn, this one was a rough one, for sure, and it might be the most graphic death out of the franchise, if not for Allie's bedroom scene, the famous one in Terrifier 2, or Dawn getting sawed in half with the hacksaw in the first film. Children do get killed in this movie, but it's mostly off screen. We do see a gory aftermath detail, but the impact of all the killings is not seen. During the intro, we hear one of the kids getting killed with the sounds of an axe swinging by Art, and I thought this was more effective and scary than actually seeing the kid being killed directly. I will say, we do see a child being blown up during the bomb mall sequence, but it's nowhere near as graphic as the other kills in the film. The death scenes that are more on the tame side would have to go through Clint Howard's cameo and the bartender in the same scene, who both only get shot. The blood and gore and the practical effects overall are very well done, and this is not surprising to me at all, because I always felt with these Terrifier films, until this one for me personally, that the blood and gore were the anchor. That was the reason why we were watching this movie, to see how extreme the director Damien Leone was going to take it with every installment. But getting more to it at the end of my review, I thought 3 did the best job of balancing the blood and gore and the story. So a slasher film with practical effects and design that are handmade always get a plus star for me. There has been a resurgence of 80s synth music being used in horror films nowadays, but I rather enjoyed the use of it here. And there's also 1 or 2 mellow moments with the score that I found to be surprisingly effective, mainly involving the flashbacks of Sienna's father, who promises to make her a female superhero character that he illustrates. I just remember the more mellow moments of the score being a standout for my viewing. I appreciated the old school and vintage look of the movie overall. Terrifier 3 feels like a movie that I could have watched in the 80s or the early 90s, and later bought it on VHS to take home. I think Terrifier 3 does have the best performance by David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown. I always like the facial expressions that he makes during the kills or the build up to them, mainly the boo-hoo face that he makes from time to time, and I gotta say, 3 is also my personal favorite Terrifier film. I had fun with the Christmas theme a bit more than I expected. The pacing and the tone overall was a bit more easy to follow for me compared to the overlong Terrifier 2. And I do think the acting across the board is solid. We have some wonky choices here and there, but I do think our leading actress, Lauren Lavera, puts in a really good performance as Sienna Shaw. And the amount of shit that her character has to take in the finale is unbelievable. I will say that if you're not familiar with the sword used in Terrifier 2 and the finale of it, then it might throw you for a loop if this is the first Terrifier film that you're watching. I will admit that I wasn't a big fan of the sword and that whole lore included in the Terrifier franchise, but I didn't mind the use of it too much in this third film. I have to be honest, and this is coming from somebody who thought it was a wonky choice in the second one. One thing that I'm sure they're going to say for the fourth film is that we don't know what happens to Gabby, the little cousin of Sienna, after a portal or another dimension. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it opens up in the Shaw household. Gabby's about to fall through. Sienna's holding her with the sharp edge of a sword, and it's cutting through Sienna's hand, but Gabby falls all the way down, and we do see the cuts start to heal up in Sienna's hand and regenerate itself. So honestly, I'm a little bit confused on that, to be fair. I'm sure it's going to be more cleared up in the next film, but those are 2 things that I wasn't sure about, or it left me a bit clueless, if you will. Again, I do think this is Damien Leone at his most polished out of the 3 films. And I would have no problem showing Terrifier 3 at a Christmas horror film watch party. I will say, we do get a cliffhanger for part 3, and they are setting up very much so for a fourth film, which has been already greenlit. But overall, I enjoyed this third installment a tad bit more than I expected, and I'm going to give Terrifier 3 a 7.5 out of 10 or a light 8 out of 10. And that's it, y'all. It's your boy Fro. What do you think about Terrifier 3? Is it your favorite out of the trilogy? Do you not like this one as much? Is it your least favorite? Comment below. Let me know your thoughts. In the meantime, between time, I'm on to the next review. Thank you for watching, and I appreciate you. Subscribe for more. Fro.